Today I'm going to be doing my top 10 albums of 1993, and that was 30 years ago. I was 16 years old, and I was just discovering metal at that time, and I was mainly listening to Metallica and Megadeth, so pretty much that's what got me into metal, right? So I'm going to start with my honorable mention, and it's Crowbar's second album called Crowbar, and it's a good sludge metal album. This album was produced by Phil Anselmo. The main man, Kurt Winstein, he's also like just essential and just a very influential guitarist and songwriter to the metal scene. So I had to mention this album and Crowbar in general. So yeah, so let's go with number 10, Dismembered from Sweden. This is their second album on Nuclear Blast. It's a great listen. It's an old school Swedish death metal band, and just a good old Swedish death metal album. Excellent album, so check it out if you haven't. 9, I have Corner Grin, released on September 10th on Noise Records. This is a Switzerland progressive thrash metal band. This is their 5th album. They added more groove to this album compared to their previous albums. I really enjoyed it. It seems like at the time fans really didn't like the album. I do. I think it's a really good album. So if you like some progressive thrash with a mixture of groove, this is a great album for you. Number 8, I have Dio, Strange Highways, released on Reprise Records. This is Dio's 6th studio album, and it's also Dio's like heaviest and darkest album. I'm a big fan of Dio's voice, so anything by Dio is awesome to me. 7, I have Tool, Undertow. This album sold 3 million copies in the US. When I heard the song Sober for the first time on the radio, and every time that I hear it, it brings me back to that era. But yeah, so when I heard the song Sober, like, I became a fan right away, and I've been a fan of Tool ever since and stuff. So yeah, this album, it's still a great album. There's so many great songs on here. 6, I have one of my favorite death metal albums, and that's Disincarnate, Dreams of Carrion Kind. This is James Murphy, probably at his best here. You know, he played guitar on Obituaries, Cause of Death. He was on Death's Spiritual Healing album. You know, he helped write that, and then so he started this project, and man, it's a gem. If you're a death metal fan, this is what you have to listen to. You have to listen to this album. It does have elements of death and Obituary in the songwriting, with deep guttural death metal vocals. Awesome. 5, I have a Danish heavy metal band, Mercyful Faith. This is their comeback album called In the Shadows, and this is my first time listening to this album, and man, it rules, and it's really good. When I was younger, I never got into Mercyful Faith. I just didn't get it at the time, but like, yeah, like listening to this album, and a lot of people suggested this album, so I checked it out, and I checked out some Mercyful Faith's previous albums, but yeah, man, this album's really good. So if you're not too into Mercyful Faith, and this is a great album. Like, the music on here is amazing. Like, you just check it out. 4, this is probably my favorite album from Anthrax, and that's Sound of White Noise. This was released on Elektra Records. This is the first album with John Bush from Armored Saint. Yeah, songs like Only, Room for One More, in the opening track, Potter's Field. I mean, these songs I could just sing along to. When I first got this album back in high school, like, I used to always listen to it and do my homework and stuff like that. It's the first album that I bought from my Anthrax, and I was easily hooked. And even this one, and then Stompful for 2, those were my first like Anthrax albums before I got into like Among the Living and stuff like that. So anyways, let's move on. So this is probably like my top 3 for sure. And I really had a hard time with these next 3 albums, because this album, number 3, is I listened to this album so much and so influential to me. But that's Sepultura Chaos AD, released on Roadrunner Records. You know, when Roadrunner Records was cool. Man, this is just a fun album. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. This is Sepultura's 5th album. You know, the follow-up to their masterpiece, Arise. I mean, songs like Chaos AD, New Territory, Slave New World. I mean, this whole album just rocks. So I love this whole album. It's just a fun album. It brings me back, you know, to parties and just hanging out with friends and listening to this album and just having a good time with it. So number 2 is Carcass Heartwork. This is the band's 4th album and their breakthrough album. This is an essential melodic death metal album, and just a metal in general. It's a masterpiece. Like, when I first saw the video for No Love Lost, I just totally fell in love with Carcass Heartwork. So that's my number 2. Everybody knows this album. So number 1, I have Death, Individual Thought Pattern, released on June 23rd. And this album has Gene Hoglan on drums and Steve DiGiorio on bass, the main man Chuck Schuldiner, and solos by Andy LaRocque. And apparently he didn't need the music to write the solos for this album, so he just went in the studio and closed his eyes and whipped up these solos for it. Apparently, I don't know. What do I know? It actually took me a long time to get into this album. When I first got into Death in the late 90s, there, it was such a change, because I listened to Sound of Perseverance, and then I got into like the earlier stuff like Spiritual Healing and Leprosy. So it took me a while to get into this album, but like what a masterpiece this album is, and what that's just awesome. Like, every album's great. If it's not a masterpiece, it's great, but they're all good. Anyways, that's my number 1, Death, Individual Thought Pattern. Yeah, so let me know what you think of my list there, and what your top albums were for 1993. If you want, please like my video and subscribe to my channel if you like. And remember, metal never dies. Cheers, everybody.